situated off Belmont, west of the 99, in cemeteries that date back to the late 1800s. The founders of Fresno rest in peace. Their grave markers range from gaudy and grandiose to understated and simple. Some are interred in structures that desperately need repair.
The famous to the sublime to the infamous, they're all here.
Lauren Spiller works at Wild Rose Funeral Home and is fascinated by the stories behind the names on the wall. Take Henry Conrad Warner, founder of Warner Company Jewelers, a Fresno business for 144 years. Spiller says Warner died at work.
Heat stroke in his jewelry store in 1897. July, no air conditioning. 1897, need I say more?
There are several Fresno notables inside this Oddfellows mausoleum. William Shaw, a former police chief and the namesake of a main street in Fresno. Albert Graves Wishon, a pioneer for water and power in the Central Valley. And businessman O.J. Woodward, one of Fresno's largest parks, bears his name. Sadly, the building is now decaying around them. An effort to raise money for restoration has so far been unsuccessful. Another mausoleum in a slightly better state has been nicknamed the Pink. It has pink stucco that's crumbling in certain places. Frank Balakian, administrator of the Ararat Armenian Cemetery, can't quite explain the Egyptian motif. It was popular in the 1920s. He believes that's the time it was built.
We have no historical records to our knowledge.
Back out in the cemetery, you can find some of the remains of William Saroyan, a famous poet.
He was cremated, and half of his ashes are here in Fresno, and the other half were taken to Armenia.
As you weave your way through more than 100 acres of cemeteries in southwest Fresno, there are thousands of headstones, eye-catching private mausoleums, markers that look like tree trunks, and a rather modest marker for the man who donated much of this land, Moses J. Church. As night falls, the iron gates keep the living away. Animals take over the dark, desolate landscape. Mountain View is the oldest cemetery in Fresno. Records go back to 1888, but it's even older than that. The date on this grave marker, 1882. Back in those early days, burials were the only option. It wasn't until 1914, when Chapel of the Light opened, that cremations were available for the first time in Fresno. This is what the first columbarium looked like in the early days. Here's what it looks like now, almost 100 years later.
You just don't see these anymore.
Keith Hargrave shows us around the oldest building for cremated remains. He's worked here for 58 years and knows almost all the history. You can call this place a work of art. After all, the architect was Julia Morgan, famous for Hearst Castle.
This room is, I think, most interesting because it really shows Julia Morgan's art. You'll notice it's all stone facing, and all of this type of artwork is the same thing that you'll see at the castle.
Speaking of homes, this one-of-a-kind urn was made to look like a 1930s-style home that still stands on Van Ness. When Benjamin and Leah Levy were having the home built, Leah Levy was killed in a car accident.
Mr. Levy thought it would be nice if we could have a replica of the home, because she never got the opportunity to live in it.
Gail Bovell Tong has lived in the two-story Art Moderne-style home for 35 years. She knew the story behind it when she bought it. She fell in love with the home's character and attention to detail. She even feels a special connection to Leah Levy.
Well, I mean, she's here in every turn of the wall and every light fixture. And
another unique urn is this silver one made for Dr. Chester Rao. He gave free health care to Armenians when they first came over. His ashes aren't here, though. Instead, they're in a boot in this memorial statue of Courthouse Park. The history of Fresno lies in cemeteries, mausoleums, and columbariums for all to visit, although some find it spooky to spend time with the dead. Spiller says there's nothing haunted here, only the spirits of entrepreneurs who built the foundation of the place we call home.
Remember, don't be afraid of the dead. It's only the living.
In Fresno, Rachel Azevedo, CBS 47 on your side.